Good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of the Rockcast. Excuse me, I was just enjoying some of those frequencies there. I'm Aaron, and this is my lovely wife.
Desiree.
And we
Can you
are
hear me
the
okay?
hosts this evening. Yeah, I'd probably pull a little bit closer, maybe angle it up a little bit. There you go. You want this kind of aiming towards your mouth. But you don't have to eat it. So tonight we are going to be diving into session 2 of the raw material. But before we do that, you have something important to say.
Yeah. Okay. So, this is our disclaimer. We do not take any authoritative stance on the material covered within. We are only here to speak the material and provide our own input, interpretation, application, and understanding on the material. We do not place any implications here within on the material explicitly. Please go to our original sources at LL Research's website for the original transcripts to do your own research. We are only here to share the information to the extent of U.S. law and permissions provided to us by LL Research. We would suggest that if what we are speaking on this evening are of any interest to you, that you do your own research with the original materials and other materials provided by LL Research. And do not take anything we say this evening as the only interpretation of the material, as it was provided by Raw under our own distortions. You can find all of our source materials at llresearch.org. It is suggested that you take only what resonates with you and work on it and not place much concern on material that does not.
Beautiful. Thank you. LL also has a different website called Bring Forth. They've got some extra material there, and I don't have a slide for it set up yet, but they also have lawofone.info that has more deeper dives into the material that was they allowed another gentleman to do, and I suck at this, and I forgot his name again, so that's okay. So, how are you? Good, great, awesome. Have you had anything in this material that kind of really stood out to you at all so far?
Not like per se.
Okay.
Just it's a lot of it's again more heavy material. So there's a lot of rereading and rereading and rereading and rereading have to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you go through Aaron talking about this, he said he's listened to him at least 3 times, and every time you go through it, there's just more and more to see and get out of it, and it's pretty rad.
There
So,
we go.
you got that set up now? There we go. All right. She's just going to be monitoring chat this evening. And I guess we can go ahead and get into it. Do you want to start with the intro there, or do you want me to go ahead and start?
You can, since I'm setting this up still.
Okay, cool.
Since it's difficult to set this up when it's not going.
Yes, I understand. So we are going to jump right into the material pretty much right away. So session 2 took place January 20th, 1981. And, of course, this was the normal channeling where they sat down, and this one goes a little more into the processes that they are requested to do by Ra during the channels, and that, of course, will expand the more we get into it. So, Ra comes in. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and the light of our infinite creator. And you'll notice that at our beginning little slide there, because Ra pretty much always begins communications with this statement. And I've always found it interesting because according to the introduction of the updated book, which I didn't say that we're doing, this point forward, we're going to be using the second version, I guess you could say. It's completely new work called the Raw Contact, and it was a gentleman with LL Research and his team went through and re-listened to all the recordings again and kind of redid it all, cleaned it up, and made a lot of editorial notes that are wonderful as you read or listen to it. So it's pretty great. So we're, excuse me, going through the raw contact. So you do that as well as other materials such as Aaron Apke's stuff. Higher density consciousness communicates pretty much solely with telepathy between each other.
Sorry.
And you're good. So raw coming in always coming in like that seems to be a verbal representation of their energy that they usually just naturally transmit while they're communicating with other higher consciousness. So I just found it cool that not only does Ra say that every time, but it is recorded every time, so they respect that. I keep losing my spot. Okay. So Ra continues, I am with this mind-body-spirit complex, which is us, he's speaking of Carla, which has offered itself for a channel. I communicate with you. Queries are in order in your projections of mind distortion at this time-space. Thusly would I assure this group that my own social memory complex, which is what Ra is a social memory complex from the planet Venus from 2 billion years ago, has one particular method of communicating with those few who may be able to harmonize their distortions with ours, and that is to respond to queries for information. We are comfortable with this format. May the queries now begin. So Ra's basically saying they are comfortable only with a question and answer format to for them to speak on anything. They are a little more open in the terms of spiritual law of one sense, but when it comes to things outside of that, there'll be a lot of historical references and stuff like that that Rob either can't or won't speak on due to the law of confusion, which is the universal law of mystery, and not wanting to change their polarity in any way. And another thing I noticed is Ra is always extremely kind with their communication. They're extremely positively polarized, especially when it's kept in consideration that they are of 6 density. So as we're going through this, you'll have to get used to very high levels of kindness as well as outrageously high levels of intellect, which is kind of why we're doing this podcast. We have some experience with Aaron Abke's description of all this, which kind of helped us get more understanding. And even going through this on our own, it's very much kind of opened us up a bit to higher levels of communicating.
Yeah.
Because going through like the raw contact and the raw material, like Aaron says, it's basically a PhD dissertation on spirituality. And
Yeah.
it is insane.
Because I've had to Google some words.
Right.
I'm just like, what in the world is this?
I've been able to get most of them out of context. He's pretty good. Ra is pretty good at that. But Ra has to find words within according to them, limited vocabulary.
Well, as you know, my vocabulary is a little more limited than yours.
Well, I had an English teacher as a sister,
Yeah.
so I got a little bit of that.
I went through private school where English was not very profound.
Yeah, because Christians or Lutherans.
Lutheran, it doesn't
Yeah.
really matter.
Oh, it does. Anyways, we're not going to get into that right now. So, I mean, just going through this material and growing yourself in that way is going to help you on so many levels. And one other note that I'd like to add was Carla was able to be the channel for all of the sessions, to my knowledge, and it took a toll on her physical body, and it became pretty strenuous for her over time, and we'll dig into that more as time goes on. You want to do the next one?
All right, let me pull that back up. I have so many tabs open. Okay. Okay. We're here.
The first question.
So, I'm guessing that there are enough people who would understand what you're saying, interested enough for us to make a book of communications with it. And I wondered if you would agree to this, us making a book. And if so, I was thinking that possibly a bit of historical background on yourself would be in order.
This is where stuff gets deep.
This is where this portion after this, what Ross said, I've had to reread 4 times and I still haven't fully gotten it.
There's a lot here.
Yes. Okay. All right. So, do you want me to keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. I am Ra. The possibility of communication, as you would call it, from the one to the one through distortion acceptable for meaning, is the reason we contacted this group. There are few who will grasp, without significant distortion, that which we communicate through this connection with this mind-body-spirit complex. However, if it be your desire to share our communications with others, we have the distortion towards a perception that this would be most helpful in regularizing and crystallizing your own patterns of vibration upon the levels of experience which you call the life. If one is illuminated, are they not all illuminated? Therefore, we are oriented towards speaking for you in whatever supply of speakingness you may desire. To teach, learn, is the law of one in one of the most elementary distortions.
There is a lot said there.
Yes.
And since this will kind of help us help them, which is also helping us, anyone watching or listening, what is your struggle with understanding that? If you want to go sentence by sentence, we can, because there is a lot said.
Well, to be completely honest, I messed up, and this is not the section I was thinking it was. I was
okay.
thinking the next one.
The next one?
Yeah. So
this one you get pretty well.
it's okay.
Okay.
Like, the more I read it, like, just reading it now out loud, I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So what Ra's basically saying is, Ra can talk.
We can talk. We good.
Ra chose to communicate because the 3, Don, Jim, and Carla, are all good people. They were put on, they chose to be reincarnated on Earth to help and educate. And that's actually spoke on later too. He's saying there's less chance of distortion with these 3 in the law of one, the way Ra's trying to communicate it.
Basically, it's, you guys are pretty decent at this, so yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, they'll understand it
Yeah.
without skewing it in the way that the Egyptians did.
Yep.
And when Ra was talking about there are few who will grasp without distortion, that's what he was bouncing it off of. There are so many people out there that would take this information for granted or use it for evil or anything like that. And then Ra, being a higher density positive, does not want that to happen.
Yeah. But we'll get into that in the next section, literally.
I know.
So let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Chosa spoke through Carla and basically saying, if you see it's okay, then it's okay.
Yeah.
And to teach, learn is the law of one of its most elementary distortions, is saying to provide assistance basically for others. And because all is one, when you teach, you are also learning.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful thing for this podcast. So since you are having struggles with the next part, do you want to read that or do you want to hear it from me?
I can, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. So, the next portion. Could you tell us something of your historical background, your earlier times in the illusion, possibly your incarnation on this planet that you spoke of before, and contact with earlier races on this planet? Then we would have something to start with in writing this book.
So Rob mentioned before how they have been here before.
Yes.
And I just want to say, as you're going through this, if there's something as you're reading it, you're just like, I need more on this, let's stop there and do it. Because I'm sure if either of us have something where we're misunderstanding, we're not totally grasping everything, somebody else might be. So we can be here at that point to provide that input. Okay? Perfect.
Okay. So, Ra goes, I am Ra. We are aware that your mind-body is calculating the proper method of performing the task of creating a teach-learning instrument. We are aware that you find our incarnate, as you call it, state of interest. We waited for a second query so as to emphasize that the time-space of several thousand of your years creates a spurious type of interest. Thus, in giving this information, we ask the proper lack of stress be placed upon our experiences in your local space-time. Now, that I don't understand.
Ra here is basically saying, I'll tell you whatever you want to know about it because it is of historical significance, but Ra is not here to speak history. Ra is here to speak the law of one.
That is in the next sentence.
Yes, but that's what they're getting at. So Ra is saying it is not important that we say this.
Okay.
That's all.
I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now keep in mind, this is all through Ra's personal distortions as well. So just because Ra doesn't find it important doesn't mean that it's not important. Just to them, that is not why they are here. So we can provide this for you, but to us, it is meaningless.
Okay. Okay. The teach learning, which is our responsibility, is philosophical rather than historical.
Exactly.
We shall now proceed with your request, which is harmless if properly evaluated.
Once again.
We are those of the Confederation who, 11,000 of your years ago, came to two of your planetary cultures, which were at that time closely in touch with the creation of the one creator. It was our naive belief that we could teach-learn by direct contact, and the free will distortions of individual feeling of person or personality were in no danger, we thought, of being disturbed, as these cultures were already closely aligned with an all-embracing belief in the liveness or consciousness of all. We came and were welcomed by the peoples whom we wished to serve. We attempted to aid them in technical ways having to do with the healing of mind-body-spirit complex distortions through the use of the crystal, appropriate to the distortion, placed within a certain appropriate series of ratios of time-space material. Now, what does he mean by crystal?
Literally crystals.
Okay.
Stones, gemstones.
Okay.
They get into it later.
And did I say he again? Probably.
That's okay.
I don't know. Okay. Thus, the pyramids were created.
Mm-hmm.
We found that the technology was reserved largely for those with the effectual mind-body's distortion of power. This was not intended by the law of one. We left your peoples. The group that was to work with those in the area of South America, as you call that portion of your sphere, gave up not so easily. They returned. We did not. However, we have left your vibration.
Never left.
However, we have never left your vibration due to our responsibility for the changes in consciousness we have had first caused and then found distorted in ways not relegated to the law of one. We attempted to contact the rulers of the land to which we had come, that land which you call Egypt, or in some areas, the Holy Land. In the 18th dynasty, as it is known in your records of space-time distortions, we were able to contact a pharaoh, as you would call him. The man was small in life experience on your plane and was what this instrument would call wanderer. Thus, this mind-body-spirit complex received our communication distortions and was able to blend his distortions with our own. This young entity had been given a vibratory complex of sound which vibrated in honor of a prosperous god, as this mind-body complex, which, Session 233, we call instrument for convenience, would call Amun.
Amun, yeah.
Amun?
Mm-hmm.
I thought Amun.
Or that.
I've heard of the name. Anyway, the entity decided that this name, being in honor of one among many gods, was not acceptable for inclusion in his vibratory sound complex.
Food's here. I'll be right back.
I'll just keep reading, I guess. Let's see here, let's start over. The entity decided that this name, being in honor of one among many gods, was not acceptable for inclusion in his vibratory sound complex. Thus, he changed his name to one which honored the sun disk. This distortion, called Aten, was a close distortion to our reality, as we understand our own nature of mind, body, spirit complex distortion. However, it does not come totally into alignment with the intended teach learning which was sent. This entity, Akhet, gotta love these Egyptian names, Akhenaten, yeah. You're gonna have to help me with this name.
My apologies.
Akhenaten?
Akhenaten.
Right, there we go. Became convinced that the vibration of one was the true spiritual vibration and thus decreed the law of one. However, this entity's beliefs were accepted by very few. His priests gave lip service only, without the spiritual distortion towards seeking. The peoples continued in their beliefs. When this entity was no longer in this density, again the polarized beliefs in the many gods came into their own, and continued so until the one known as Muhammad delivered the peoples into a more intelligible distortion of mind-body-spirit relationships. Do you have a more detailed interest at this time?
So while I was running and failing miserably at this, getting our food, did you have any questions?
The whole thing is just so deep. You just gotta kind of... To me, reading through it, it's, hey, we went to the Egyptians, and to me, it's like, it was probably too early for them because it was considered a naive attempt.
Yes.
So, in my opinion, Ra sees it as, we were a bit too early on this, and they foobarred it.
Yeah, because Ra sees it as they were like, oh, hey, because the Egyptians already worship the planets and the sun and stars as gods, which, when you get into the Logos, is essentially what that is. So Ra came down, and they speak later on the form they took, which is kind of funny because they were like, we're going to come down in a form that we think most best represents us, and then they realize, oh, hey, they see us as other. That's not good. Whoop. And spoke with Amun about how to do the pyramids and all that, and Ra's basically saying, oh yeah, I did that. And they get into it later. I don't think that's in this session per se. I think Ra's like, there's a lot to talk about with Ra's history. Came in, tried to spread the law of one like they are doing with the trio of LL in the 80s, thinking that because of the way the Egyptians are, that it would be good.
Yeah.
Not realizing, because Ra is not an Egyptian, the whole, worshiping people as a god thing for the Egyptians. And that's the whole distortion of what Ra was trying to say kind of came about, where, only those of power should have this. Because slavery was abundant.
Oh, yes.
Hugely abundant.
Yes.
Not just in Egyptian culture at this time, but really everywhere.
Yeah, it was huge everywhere.
Yeah.
It didn't really matter.
Right.
But the Egyptians are more thought of because of Christianity.
Oh, probably any Judaism.
Well, Judaism.
Jewish-based.
Judaism.
Yeah, anything that came out of that, because...
Well, yes, Judaism is very heavy, obviously, in culture. But Christianity, I feel, is a little heavier than Judaism because it's a very world-known thing that people do.
Yeah, it's probably because now people just
Because
think
of
of
the
Jews
Pope.
as people. Well, the Pope is Catholic.
Catholic, Christianity, Lutheran. To
Different
me,
though.
they
Catholics
all.
don't believe Jesus, right?
No, they do.
Oh.
It's the Jews that don't believe Jesus is
Okay.
real.
See,
The Jews only go. The Orthodox Jews believe only in the Old Testament.
the war god.
Yes.
That makes sense. That's why they keep all their Jew gold around their neck. Anyways.
They don't believe Jesus was real. They think the New Testament was only created by man,
Well,
and that man distorted it to where we all now are okay. Like the Jews seem it as us Jewish people, we're the holy people. And cat. Us Jewish people, we're the holy people, but now in the New Testament it says we're all holy, and that's not true. The
Well,
Jewish people are the Holy
Let's
Land.
be real here. The entirety of the Bible is written by man.
Well, no, I understand that.
The
I'm
en-
just saying that's
the entirety of every religious work was written by man.
being slightly raised in many different religions. You start to learn these things, and I was growing up in the Messianic Jews, which is they believe that Jesus is real, and it's basically Christian Jews.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
saying Jesus was
It's
the
Christian
Messiah.
Jews, but we just don't eat pork or seafood.
Interesting, because that's like all they could eat over there was seafood.
Yeah, but it's unclean. I don't understand
Maybe
it.
because they swim in their poop.
It's something.
It's not kosher.
Yeah, it's not kosher. It's something to do with like how the body like cleanses itself. Like you know how pigs they pee through their skin.
So do chickens.
Yeah, I know.
But Jews eat
Wait,
chicken.
no, they pee through their hooves.
I don't know how they pee. I just know chickens pee through their skin.
They do.
Which is why it's so good.
And then pigs, they don't sweat really. So it's just that's the reason why they roll around in mud.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just something with like how the body
It
processes
was something
things.
about the cloven hoof, which is something that was spoke of in the Old Testament. was
Yeah.
Don't eat that of the cloven hoof,
Yeah.
which is cows and pigs,
Yeah.
but they eat steak.
Yes.
So
It doesn't make sense. I don't know why seafood is
here's
also
here's
not
the
a part
crazy
of it.
thing: when you dig into any
Or like
religion,
deer. Like they can eat deer,
also no, I don't think deers have cloven hooves.
lambs.
This is what I'm getting at. When you actually dig into any religion, there's so many discrepancies
don't
and
understand it.
hypocrisy. It's ridiculous. And the unfortunate part is people are so brainwashed by this. It hurts.
Yeah. That food smells really good.
Yeah, it does. We're almost done. So I'll go ahead and do the next one because you just read a huge chunk. Unless there's anything you'd like to speak on that.
What did I write down?
Oh my goodness, excuse me. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more questions, and there's actually not a whole lot really to kind of dig
Basically, what I wanted to really point out is that Ra said he was part of they were part of the Confederation, but there was more of a confederation in what we call South America. But it just to me seems kind of weird that they kind of split,
What do you
went
mean?
to different places.
The Confederation is verbatim a confederation.
Yeah, but they
It
said there's
is-
more. There was like two, because some of them went like to Egypt.
Ra went to Egypt, and then another of the Confederation went to South
Okay,
America.
so there's only like, in our human brains, there's two beings.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Confederation, I believe, has 50 some odd entities in it.
Okay, so I thought, for some reason, my brain was taking it as Ra went with a bunch of other beings to Egypt, and then a whole other bunch of beings went to, like, what was it, the Mayans and the Aztecs, or
That whole area, because
Yeah.
the Ra gets into it later, but it's all the sunken city of Atlantis and all of that.
yeah.
That's what happened in South America.
So it was just Ra went to Egypt,
Yes.
Or
at,
is
at
it-
this time, just
or is
Ra.
it only perceived as that because that's what they are saying?
What do you mean?
Like Ra is saying, I went there, or we.
Ra says we because Ra is a social memory complex. So it is
Okay.
multiple entities like us that have combined together. which
Okay.
is what happens when you ascend densities.
Okay.
So Ra is a social memory complex from the planet Venus. It is a large culmination of souls from Venus that all basically vibrate the same and all call themselves Ra. They
Okay.
all have access to the same hive mind, you could call it, basically. So, and this
I
was
just wanted to
brought
make
up
sure that I
later
was
too, where
understanding.
Don asked specifically during these different channel sessions, am I speaking to different entities of Ra, like different parts of Ra, or am I speaking to the same one? And if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I've listened to that part. Ra says you are speaking to Ra. It doesn't really matter. We're all the same. So whenever Ra comes down, the Ra that came down was the same Ra that they spoke to, the same Ra that if someone was able to channel now would be the same Ra. And the only reason Ra has the name Ra because of the Egyptians.
Yeah. And it just makes it easier for us to,
Make the reference
yeah.
and communicate. Because I think we said last episode, higher densities don't always choose names
Yes.
because they don't need it. The higher up you go, you lose identity.
Yeah. You're
Because
just there.
even getting into fourth, your consciousness starts to, as you get high in the fourth and start getting in the fifth, it's basically like we take our brains and plug them in together.
Which is
You
pretty
know
cool.
everything about me, I know everything about you.
That's still pretty cool.
Yeah. Which is actually, on a technological level, is what's happening on the planet right now.
Yeah.
So, we're going to go ahead and pop into the next one, and I'll
Okay.
take over for you.
That's fine. I just wanted that clarification.
Yeah, of course. Don't take me as a spiritual guru.
No, I know.
I understand this material on a very conscious level, not so much a spiritual, inherent level yet. I'm working on it. So, Don continues, we are very interested in the entire story that you have to tell and in getting into the Law of One in quite some detail. So keep in mind, this is session 2, so they're just laying their intentions out. This is hilarious. There will be several questions that I'll ask as we go along that may or may not be related directly to understanding the Law of One. However, I believe that the proper way of presenting this as a teach-learning vehicle to the population of the planet that will read it at this time is to investigate different facets of what you tell us. You spoke of crystal healing. One other thing, I think this is this is a little kind of side note that Don put in there. One other thing I might mention is that when the instrument becomes fatigued, we want to cut off communication and resume it at a later time after the instrument is recharged. We get more information on that as we move along. And if the instrument is suitable at this time, I would like a little discussion of the crystal healing that you mentioned.
Now, the instrument, they're meeting Carla, right?
Carla, yes.
Okay.
She, at this point, she is not in her body. So
Yes.
it is just, it's literally a microphone for Ra at this point.
Yeah.
Or like a plug, like a jack into Ra consciousness to speak. I am Ra. The principle of crystal healing is based upon an understanding of the hierarchical nature of the structure of the illusion, which is the physical body, as you would call it. There are crystals which work upon the energies coming into the spiritual body. There are crystals which work upon the distortions from spirit to mind. There are crystals which balance the distortions between the mind and the body. All of these crystal healings are charged through purified channels without the relative crystallization of the healer working with the crystal. The crystal will not be properly charged. Sorry, I read that sentence terribly.
That's because that weird part.
Yeah, that's a terrible, terrible copy there. Let me go ahead and reread that so it doesn't sound like balls. Without the relative crystallization of the healer working with the crystal will not be properly charged. There, sentence. The other ingredient is a proper alignment with the energy fields of the planet upon which you dwell, and the holistic or cosmic distortions or streamings which enter the planetary aura in such a manner that an appropriate ratio of shapes and placement within these shapes is of indicated aid in the untangling or balancing process. You good so far? Mm-hmm. To go through the various crystals to be used would be exhausted to this instrument, although you may ask us if you wish in another session. The delicacy, shall we say, of the choosing of the crystal is very critical, and, in truth, a crystalline structure such as a diamond or ruby can be used by a purified channel who is filled with the love light of one in almost any application. This, of course, takes initiation, and there have never been many to persevere in the extent of progressing through the various distortion leavings which initiation causes. May we further inform you in any fairly brief way upon this or another subject. Basically saying
Crystals are healing.
crystals are magic. I wear amethyst all the time. I don't usually have it out of my shirt because I like the way it makes me feel. I just didn't tuck it in. And all these different crystals have different applications, and the only way for them to be properly used to their highest and most specific and accurate properties is by someone who knows what they're doing. And at this time, there was few. And even lesser so, I would say, in the first time, not the first time, but when Ra was here with the Egyptians, the reason for building, hold on, because the reason for building the pyramids, which we'll get into, is to initiate people to have these abilities and grow these abilities.
Yeah.
Now, they were more into spiritual practices, but they didn't have, in my learning, the level of consciousness required to fully take advantage of what's there.
I'd have to agree.
Like, obviously, there are always mystics and mages that come through and can do that in every culture, everywhere, Christianity included, that have been able to do that, which, in my opinion, is probably higher density consciousness coming back down because they're just inherently aware.
Yeah.
So, yeah, basically, you need to be initiated to fully take advantage of what the stones offer. Would you like me to keep going?
Sure.
Don comes in. Yes, you mentioned that the pyramids were an outgrowth of this. Could you expand a little bit on that? Were you responsible for the building of the pyramid, and what was the purpose of the pyramid? Ra comes in. I am Ra. The larger pyramids were built by our ability using the forces of one. This gets so good. The stones are alive. It has not been so understood by the mind, body, spirit complex distortions of your culture. The purposes of the pyramids were two. Firstly, to have a properly oriented place of initiation for those who wish to become purified or initiated channels for the law of one. Two, we wish them to carefully guide the initiates in developing a healing of the people whom they sought to aid in the planet itself. Pyramid after pyramid, charged by the crystal and initiate, were designed to balance the incoming energy of the one creation with the many and multiple distortions of the planetary mind, body, spirit. You good? Mm-hmm. All right. In this effort, we were able to continue work with brothers within the Confederation. English. In this effort, we were able to continue work that brothers within the Confederation had effected through building of other crystal-bearing structures, and thus complete a ring, if you will, of these about the Earth, as this instrument would have us vibrate at surface. This instrument begins to lose energy. We ask for one more query or subject, and then we shall take our leave for this time-space. Ross says, yeah, we built the pyramids. The stone is alive, which they go into later, saying the pyramids were built by Ra's conscious thought. Because Ra is able to communicate with stone, with lower density, and vibrate with them in a way to get them to understand and do as Ra wishes. And like I said, this is going to get... Ra talking about the pyramids is so amazing. And then, of course, anything that these higher density consciousness do in terms of coming to Earth is very much important that they present what they want to do to the Confederation and the Council. This they go into in more detail later, but these consciousness, because of the quarantine place around the Earth, which once again we'll get into, if a entity just tries to come in, the guardians bathe them in love light, and they either stay and present their case, basically, but most of the time they leave because there's a quarantine around the planet to keep us all safe, essentially.
Yeah.
So anything that happens, especially from the Confederation, in terms of like not really intervening, but coming down to, and I mean, just plop down and be like, we're going to do this. They have to present it to the Confederation, the other brothers of the Confederation, and then the Council to allow them to breach quarantine. So when they talk about the other brothers in the Confederation, I think that's what they're talking about there. So Don then asks about capstones on the pyramid, how it's made of, how they moved it. And then Ra then asks, or requests basically for it to happen the next channel because Carla's getting tired. And it is a deep subject. So then Ra also comes in this same little moment, says, if you have any questions about the proper use of this mind-body-spirit complex, we would appreciate your asking them now, and this is dope. Do you want to read this?
Sure.
All right. Start with Don.
Yep. Consider them asked. I mean, I don't have anything to go on. What is the proper use of this instrument? What should we do to maximize her ability to comfort, rejuvenate, etc.? Ra says, I am Ra. We are pleased that you asked this question, for it is not our understanding that we have the right duty to share our perceptions on any subject but philosophy without direct question.
And that's what I spoke of at the beginning.
However, this mind-body-spirit complex is not being correctly used, and therefore is experiencing unnecessary distortions of body in the area of fatigue. The vibrations may well be purified by a simple turning to the circle of one and the verbal vibration while doing so of the following dialogue. Question: what is the law? Answer: the law is one. Question: why are we here? Answer: we seek the law of one. Question: why do we seek Ra? Answer: Ra is an humble messenger of the law of one. Both together, rejoice then, and purify this place in the law of one. Let no thought form enter the circle we have walked about this instrument, for the law is one. That was a lot.
It is, and what Ra is basically saying, it's like a little chant thing for Don and Jim to do while Carla is in her bed and ready to go. They walk about her and do that chant. What is the law? The law is one. Why are we here? We seek the law of one. Why do we seek Ra? Ra is an humble messenger of the law of one. Rejoice then and purify this place in the law of one. And this is what's important. Let no thought form enter the circle we have walked about this instrument, for the law is one. What that's saying is, let no other entity enter except Ra.
Okay. All right. So, moving on. The instrument at this time should be in trance. The proper alignment is the head pointed 20 degrees north by northeast. This is the direction from which the newer or new age distortions of love light, which are less distorted, are emanating from, and this instrument will find comfort therein. This is a sensitive instrument, by which we mean the distortions which enter her mind-body-spirit complex come from any of her senses. Thus, it is well to do the following. Place at the entity's head a virgin chalice of water. To the center, the book most closely aligned with the instrument's mental distortions, which are allied most closely with the law of one, that being the Bible that she touches most frequently. To the other side of the Bible, a small amount of scents or incense in a virgin censer. To the rear of the book, symbolizing one, open to the Gospel of John, chapter 1, a white candle. The instrument would be strengthened by the wearing of a white robe. The instrument shall be covered and prone, the eyes covered. We feel that, though this is a complex of activity circumstance, it may seem very distorted from a purposeful teach-learning experience. These elaborations on the technique of trance will ease the mind distortions of those about the instrument as they perceive improvement in the instrument's distortions with regard to fatigue. We add only that if these teach-learning sessions are held during time-space during which your sun body does not light your room, that it is best to call the instrument before the lighting of the illuminatory mechanism. I am Ra. I leave you in the glory and the peace of the one Creator. Rejoice in the love light and go forth in the power of the one Creator. In joy we leave you, Adonai.
I love it. I love it so much because it seems so minor, right? The way she's laying, the stuff strewn about, and Ra gets into it more, like open the Bible to John. And this makes more sense if you were part of LL at the time, which was just the three of them, you know, and their personal relationships. Like all of this is basically to make Carla the most comfortable, especially in this area of what they're doing. And her being comfortable helps Ra with the channel.
Yes.
And it's just beautiful. Open the Bible to the Gospel of John, have an incense going, have a candle going, and then have a fresh chalice of water. And Ra gets into more detail about all of this in the coming sessions. And it gets very, very, very specific.
Yes.
And it's just, I found it extremely interesting that, like, just minor little move it 2.789 degrees west. Not exactly that number, but I mean, just small little things like that. It's insane. Having not been one that is at all educated in channeling works, like all of this just kind of blows my mind.
Starts a channel, Ra goes, you must move her 0.2 centimeters over.
You're laughing? It happened.
Did it really?
The next session, I'm not even kidding you. Not even kidding you. We'll talk about it next week. It is awesome. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Nope. Just reread it. Go read it for yourself.
Read it for
Listen
yourselves.
For yourself.
If anything we're saying here resonates with you, check it out yourself. Go see Aaron on YouTube, and if you want just a big old synopsis of it all to get more of a vibe, because he's going to go through it with his series a lot faster than what we are, because we're going session by session, and he picks topics.
Yes.
Which is another fantastic way to do it. I will never knock Aaron for what he does. He's phenomenal. LL offers all of this material for you for free for personal research on their website, llresearch.org. You can also go to bringforth, that's for the number.org, and then lawofone.info. You can find all sorts of stuff there. Please support them and the original material. This is all done out of love, guys, even what we're doing here. Mm-hmm. We expect nothing out of this, and if we can just help one person polarize, it's worth everything we're doing.
Yep.
So go to the OGs, LL Research. There's plenty more too. Like you can get into Dolores Cannon and Ramana Harshi. Like a whole bunch of people know about this. I mean, this is, to me, this is the reality and the truth of existence. This is the meaning of life. This is the law of the universe. It's the law of one. And we are here solely for the one infinite creator to experience itself, all to eventually return to source, the creator. And
Yep.
It is fucking beautiful.
Yep.
So we're going to go ahead and call it there. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for listening to the podcast on all the platforms. You'll see it floating around my head over here. We are available pretty much everywhere now. If there is a platform that you use that we are not on, please let us know, and we will look into getting on that platform. The releases for the VODs are the Saturday midday, so noon Central Time. This will be available on your favorite podcasting platform as well as YouTube. And you know what to do over there. Like, comment, subscribe, thumbs up, and reviews and stuff on the podcast platforms. We appreciate it all. What?
Finish what you're saying, but I have something to add.
Okay.
Finish what you're saying.
I think I'm done.
Okay. We must add what's not happening next week.
Oh, shit. I already forgot. We've been doing the show for an hour. So there will not be an episode next week. We're not skipping material. Thank you very much. God, I love you. Next week, we have an appointment to get our first tattoos. So obviously, those can take some time. So there will be no episode next week. It sucks for me, but it also doesn't suck because I'm super excited. So come back to us 2 weeks from now, which I believe should be August at that point. And yeah, we'll be here again.
It'll be August 3rd.
August 3rd. So 7 p.m. Central Time, August 3rd, we'll be
Where did
back
the
here
month go?
live again. The month went into the vastness of space. And the best thing about living in the now and not worrying about the past or being confused about the past or fretting the future is now is awesome and it flies by.
Or, you work a lot of 16-hour shifts.
Well, that's, yeah, we'll just set that aside. So once again, thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Peace out and have a good night.